Hi, I'm Terrell Turner, one of the hosts of the Stuff Your Accountant Isn't Telling You podcast. And today we have a great guest on because this is one of the leaders of a firm that I've been watching and learning a lot from. And there are a lot of people who are trying to run an accounting firm and they're trying to think through things like scaling, whether things like potential mergers, and they have just no idea what's going on because all of that stuff tends to happen in a black box. So we had on last year, Adam, where he talked about what was going on with Summit CPA prior to the merger. Now I want to get some views on, hey, what's been happening since? So stay tuned for today's episode.
Welcome to the podcast where we tell small business owners how to use the secrets and strategies that big businesses use to increase their profitability.
So without further ado, let me bring on Jody. Welcome to the show, Jody.
Yeah, thanks, Terrell, for having me.
Absolutely. So before we jump into the details of kind of, what's been happening with the merger, can you share a little bit about your background and just kind of your history with Summit CPA?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Basically founded Summit CPA back in 2002 as a traditional CPA firm, and then realized pretty quickly that's not what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And so around 2004, we created a service line called Virtual CFO Services, which is kind of like CAS 2.0 right now is what the EICPA is kind of labeling that type of a level of service where we're really kind of jumping in, helping out with the strategy, KPIs, all that kind of stuff. And then trying to develop that through over the years when it wasn't even, no one knew what it was kind of a difficult thing. So marketing was a huge thing for us at that point, trying to just get the word out. And then it wasn't until about 2011-ish when we started actually niching not only with the CFO service line, but also going into a vertical, which we picked the creative agency space at that point. Did we really start seeing sales ramp up, and where we were onboarding like 11 clients in a month, 7 in a month, it was consistently going there. And at the same time, we were working through other things, like we were deciding at that point to go fully remote. So we went fully remote at the same time, we're scaling hard. So there was a lot of things flying in the air as we're trying to juggle everything and fly that airplane, and basically creating it as we're getting on the runway type of a thing. And from about 2010 through we merged last year with Anders CPA advisors, we grew about, I'd say we doubled our size about every 3 years. So we had at least a 35% growth rate year over year, just based on scaling the virtual CFO practice. 100% of it was CFO practice. And with that, we added CAS 1.0 to it. So we had some back office accounting stuff to it. And that's about a third of what we offer with our clients. But for the most part, it was a CFO side. So scaling was a big thing. We had to create those processes and tools and all that kind of stuff. And then when we joined Anders in 2022, it was one of those things that it just had to be a perfect fit. And we found out that it was, which was nice because you never know. And so from there, now we're going from a completely virtual CFO firm to a traditional model where we've got tax and audit and all the different services that a larger accounting firm offers, but we are the virtual CFO arm. So we're the independent unit of Anders and providing CFO services for clients, and growth is continuing on. It's working out really well, and we're pretty happy at the move. So kind of a full circle, started, bootstrapped it, ended up selling it or merging, whatever you want to call it. And now we got basically our venture too. The Anders said that, hey, we tell our folks we grew it to about $10 million in CFO services, and they're like, hey, we're pretty excited about it, right? And we're like, yeah, we're going to be 20 million in 3 years, and we're super excited about it. And then they said, well, can you be 50 million in 4 years? I'm like, well, 50 million? Did you just hear me? I just said 20 million. And they're like, I'm like, okay. And then when you think about it, it's like, yeah, we could be 50 million if we had the right partner and they were willing to help in the growth. And I thought, hey, this could be a win-win for both of us. And that's why we eventually made the move, because we knew that partnering with Anders, we could be bigger and better, more profitable and everything, and help more clients than what we could being, Summit CPA group all by itself. And so on Anders' side, again, win-win for them as well. Now they're offering a service line that they were offering before, but not to the scale that we were offering it. And they could, be a leader in that industry. And so definitely a win-win.
Awesome. I love it. There's so many things in there that I want to dive into a little bit more. I think the first one was where you talked about, like, starting off as a traditional kind of CPA firm.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think this is something that a lot of business owners face, where it's like where they start off as approaching it from the traditional way that their business usually shows up in the market.
Mm-hmm.
And then deciding, like, you know what, that's really not how we want to do it. So was that like an emotional process, or kind of how'd you guys, or was it, hey, you looked at the numbers, or how did you guys kind of come to that conclusion that, hey, the traditional approach isn't our
Yeah.
deal?
Well, it's kind of funny because I always like to push the limits on things, and the idea that when I decided to be this entrepreneur and start my own firm, it wasn't because I was just a brilliant person and wanted to do it. What happened was that I tried the public accounting world, and I worked for two large public accounting firms, and man, I hated it. It was like a rat race. It was like, geez, I did not want to go through that. And it was like, because I literally got sick before busy season because it was like, the anxiety got to me about, now I got to work 80 hours a week for the next, so many hours. And it was just not for me. And I thought, no way I can raise a family like this. And so then I thought, well, the corporate world is the perfect way to go. So I'm going to take and go to the corporate world, work for a $250 million manufacturing company. Thought this is great. For about a year and a half, it was awesome. And then it got super boring. It was again, Groundhog Day over and over again. It's like, oh my gosh, now I don't like either one. What am I going to do? And it's like, and then I got this opportunity to run an office for a small firm. And I started doing that. You know what? I'm just not cut out for this, having bosses and stuff like that. I think I need to be this entrepreneur, take this entrepreneur step. And so that's when I jumped ship and said, you know what, let's start Summit CPA Group. Let's do it differently. I don't want to do it like the public accounting firms. And I want to kind of mirror both the corporate model and the public accounting model and see if it works. And with that, of course, you start off, you're taking tax return clients. You think, how can we do this so that there's no busy season? And it's like, well, let's work with them all year round. And so I thought, well, let's meet with them monthly. And so we kind of broke it down a little bit. And then we're like, you know what, these clients like this. Let's quit talking about this historical stuff that typically is what accountants always talk about. Let's talk about how that really impacts them. How it makes a difference. And because all these big companies have all the finance people, but the small companies can't afford them, right? And so we thought, hey, let's take that and let's journey into it. And it was like, wow, this is kind of cool. Clients love it. They're meeting with us monthly. They love it. They come to the meetings. It's really, I feel like we're making a difference, right? And then I realized, man, I can't do this and invoice clients. I've got to figure out a fee structure. And we created this flat fee, value-based, fee structure back in, 2004, because we didn't want to do this hourly bill stuff, which was different again than what accounting firms did. And it became a subscription-based model. And clients were like, you know what, we love this service, but can you meet with you more often? We need you more often. It's like, yeah, we can do that. And so now we had to come up with a system and a process. What are we going to do on these more often meetings, which ended up being weekly meetings? And so we were meeting with all these clients on a weekly basis, and clients loved it. They attended every meeting. We had a purpose for the meeting, and it worked out well. And I thought, you know what? Why are we billing clients monthly? Let's zap their account every week. And so I thought, perfect. And so we started, zapping clients' accounts every week. And so it was a weekly subscription-based model where they could quit anytime they wanted. They weren't obligated to stay. And we provided, at the CFO level, the unlimited type service. We could add a la carte stuff if we want to do the back end office accounting stuff, like the bookkeeping and stuff like that, because we could still do that for them. And about a third of our clients, we still do that. But it was kind of nice and just kind of ramped up to where, we were just doing things differently, kind of thinking outside the box, which was the big part about it. It's like, just because people have done this all the time doesn't mean it has to be the way it's done. And I still hear that in a lot of different, professions. Oh, they'll never do that. And it's like, well, just do it. If they don't do it, they won't do it. And then that's what my partner, Adam even said, he goes, oh, clients will never pay you up front. I'm like, why not? We'll just have them sign this and they'll pay it. And it's like, wow, they all did. It's like, they even loved it because now they didn't have to worry about sending us a payment or especially if they're in a cash flow situation. It was never like, oh, hold on to our payment before, we do that. And then we get ourselves in trouble because we're way behind on the billings. And then the client feels real weird about it and stops coming to the meetings when they really need to be at those meetings, so it took that completely out of the picture. And the subscription-based billing was definitely a godsend for us as we're going through, because we built it to a $10 million firm before we merged, and we had no AR. We actually had negative AR because we collected all of our money on Mondays before we even did the work.
Nice.
Which is kind of cool. And so it was a really nice thing, but it was again, just kind of pushing the limits. Right. And it was, just because it's done that way before doesn't mean it's got to be done that way going forward. And that's always been kind of my look, how can we do it better? AI is going to come out and make it better for us, even more, which I'm super excited about. And so, it's like, hey, just kind of push the limits and figuring out what what's going to work now and what's going to work going forward.
Nice. Now you talked about, having like that entrepreneurial spirit and just that interest of like, hey, how do we change things? How do we do it different? Let's test out, we don't need to go through years of analysis. Let's just try it. Now, a lot of times when you merge with a larger company, that's usually not the mentality of the larger company. So I want to talk about how that's played out now with the merger, because I mean, it is like this, this marriage of philosophies and mentalities. So how is that kind of played out, post the merger?
Yeah, it's tough, right? Because, the way that we pay our people is different. We pay our people a base salary, which is equal to what people would normally get. And we give them an incentive comp every single month based on things going above and beyond. And so it's a different type of pay structure. They can make a lot more, they can make a lot less if they want to work less. So it's kind of it's a really cool structure because it gives the people the autonomy to make decisions. Hey, do I want to pick up that extra client? And if I do, here's my reward for it. So there's a lot of cool stuff about that. If for folks that, maybe want to go on maternity leave, can I scale back my situation without losing my job? Absolutely. And then when they come back, hey, let's add it back. And then, so there's not an HR issue going back and forth and stuff. And so we give this variable comp, structure, as a huge part of what we do, because it allows us to really scale. That's not typical in any CPA firm, most companies itself. And so that alone is a really hard sell because they're so used to doing it one way. And then we come in here, we're doing it completely different. So it's one of those things that you've got to really kind of work with the other side and kind of work with what's best. Tracking hours, we track hours only to, we don't bill by the hour, but we track hours so that we can see how, where how profitable we are per client, where we're falling down in different areas, how to price things. There's a lot of different things there. Whereas they track hours, because they're billing clients a lot. And so, with that, we may have, our team might be working, 40, 50 hours a week, whatever it is for that week, but they may do it within 4 days. And they're like, hey, let's take the weekend off. Whereas with them, it's like, no, you got to be here 5 days a week, clock your time in, clock your time out. So there's different policies that you have to kind of put in place to make sure that both sides work well. Because when you're bringing in a fully remote team and you have a brick and mortar team, there's different rules for that. There's got to be different rules. It can't all be the same way. And with marketing, we do things a lot different with marketing, where we're content marketing, we're blasting clients or blasting prospects all the time with all this content marketing, really similar to what you do with all the videos and stuff you put out there, which is awesome. We've been doing that for since 2004. And so it's real easy to find us. And so we don't ever go out and try to pick clients up. Clients come to us. And that's kind of the beauty of the way that the content marketing works and the thought leadership works. And I'm sure you're experiencing the exact same thing, and that's different than what a traditional CPA firm's doing, where they are actually out there at the country clubs, and the partners are bringing in these clients, right? Because they're doing all the mixing and mingling. Our CFOs don't do that, at all. We don't want them to do that. We want them to do their job. We don't want them to do something that's uncomfortable for 90% of the people in the United States. We want them to do their job and do their job well. Let the marketing engine bring that in. So completely different philosophy, right? And so you've got to marry all of these different areas and be really careful not to say that, hey, the way that we do it's perfect and the way that you do it's not perfect. Our way is the better way. You can't go on that idea or it's not going to work, because you're going to keep butting heads, right? And so it's got to be kind of a meeting of the minds, and you've got to work with each other and kind of explain why this works and why we do it that way, not just because we do it that way, but why we do it that way, and then why we need to continue doing it that way. And so there's a lot of different variables there. And one of the biggest things that when we merged was one of the big criteria that I had is that, hey, we have to work, virtual CFO service group has to work as a separate unit. It can't be just kind of molded in and kind of dispersed within the group. We have our own little tax department within it that only works with the virtual CFO clients. We have a marketing team that focuses on it. We have our technology and everything. So, that had to be a requirement. Hey, this has to be a unit that works together. We'll create this forecasted budget there. And then if we go outside of that, then we'll reach out to you and say, hey, hey, can we go ahead and add this to it? And so it becomes more of a corporate environment type of thing with budgets and so forth than what it was when we were doing it ourselves. And a great opportunity came up and say, hey, let's pivot and let's go this direction. Can't really do that now, unless it's in our budget, unless we can show that, hey, it's going to be a good positive for this for the department. So it's a little different experience, and it's something that I'm just gonna have to get used to. I've been doing it for now a year, from the merger, and I still have all my hair, kind of all my hair left. so I would say it's working out really well so far. But again, it's just something that you can't go in thinking that your way is the best way and their way is not, and you're not going to bend. You've got to really kind of compromise and really listen. But both sides have got to do that. If it's just one or the other, that merger is probably not going to work.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good point, because I hear a lot of people that when they think about a merger, they think in terms of, I'm just trying to exit, because once I sell, like my identity in this whole process no longer exists. So they're just trying to get out. So it's good to hear that. Now, one of the things that I'm curious about, because you talked about, before the merger, you guys were talking about going from 10 to 20 million. Mm-hmm. And then they came along and said, well, can you do 50? Which means like the capacity you guys were planning for is very different from the capacity that you need to hit 50. So how have you guys been kind of adjusting, like, your speed of implementation, just the capacity to go from, like I said, pretty much adding 30 million to the goal you already had?
Oh, I know. Tell me about it. Which the cool thing is that we're tracking it right now. We're on track of doing that. We're almost going to hit 14 to 15 million this year from 10. So we're definitely tracking that way. So that's a positive part about it. But yeah, we had to actually break down and really go through. We have a director retreat every year, and we take our directors, we take them away with their families in a really nice place. And we spend about 4 days really going over in detail how we're going to accomplish this next year. What went right last year, what went wrong, what we're going to change and so forth. Well, the purpose of last year's director retreat was a little different. It was like, hey, now we're in the merger. Here's our goal. How are we going to get there? And so we broke it out exactly. We broke it out year by year, what we have to do in every year, and how we're going to actually generate that people wise, what we have to do. So we broke everything out from people to processes to, hey, what's the magic sauce going to be? And so, whereas we were focused primarily on one industry, which was about 60% of our client base, we thought, hey, let's add some more verticals in there, and let's train up the verticals. Let's create a real estate vertical, a health vertical, a cannabis vertical. Let's create all these different verticals that we can actually accelerate in and do well in, and really kind of help us repeat what we've already done. So that was kind of the idea. And then get thought leaders in there and figure out how we can get those thought leaders to, in each of these different verticals to really kind of be that person driving it, give them the autonomy, give them the independence, let them be the entrepreneur that they want to be, and really kind of build that within the company with, kind of a safety net, which is kind of nice. Entrepreneurs typically don't have safety nets, which is kind of nice not to have that. And so we thought, hey, let's figure out how we can do this. So once we got the roadmap put together, then it's just simply executing on it. And with that, it's always fun, right? Execution is super fun once you actually have the details, and that's basically what we do for clients, right? We're forecasting. We're actually breaking down the non-financials indicators, and we're making those look like numbers. What can you control, what can't you control, and when you can break it down in detail and really get that road plan out there, that doesn't necessarily mean that's going to happen perfectly the way you want it to, but you know what? In 4 years, if we're at 40 million, I would say it's pretty successful. I'm going to high five myself. We didn't hit the 50 million, but if we hit 60 million, my gosh, I'm definitely high fiving myself. And so, the idea is putting it out there, having a goal and driving to it. We tell our clients to do this all the time, and we always build that 3-year roadmap for the client And here we are ourselves doing the exact same thing, building that 4 to 5 year roadmap and trying to figure out exactly what it is. But you got to have the plans in place. Otherwise, you're just going to continue on a flat scale and you without a purpose.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a really good point, because it's one thing I was laughing with someone. I was like, a lot of the advice that most accounting firms usually give their clients, they don't end up using themselves. So I asked a group of accountants, like, how often you guys review your financial statements? And most of them said, well, we really don't.
That's a problem. Yeah, we look at our financials as soon as they're available. I mean, so within 10 days of the end of the month, we're looking at our financials. We have a forecasting meeting every single month. We're going through, here's all the new hires we're bringing on. Here's when we need that new hire, and here's the new hires that we have in our pool. When can we bring those folks on? Can we bring it on early? If we do bring it on early, how's that going to impact our bottom line? And is it going to stay within what we told Anders that we were going to accomplish? Because that's important. We can't just be reckless and run loose and do our own thing and not have anybody to report to. So it's important that, hey, we told them, based on our plan, here's what we're going to do bottom line, here's what we're going to do top line. And if it varies, then we need to explain to them, why did it vary? And that's a nice step for us anyways, because we should be doing that ourselves, right? Not just accepting it. We need to be held responsible to somebody else, which again, we're held responsible to us. So again, it's a constant thing where we're actually looking at that every single month and trying to figure out how that really impacts our long-term goals. So I know right now, based on where we're at, instead of 50 million, we're tracking about 52 million. So we're a little ahead of schedule right now, based on that long-term goal, which is kind of funny that you can look that far out and say, hey, we're on schedule hitting that. But if you have it really broken down with all those non-financials, like I talked about, number of people, number of clients, when we're picking those clients up, pace, all the different things that belong into that forecast, outside of just simply, we're going to increase our sales by 50%. Nobody knows how to do that. You have to break it down to those non-financials, right? And so by having that, it really kind of helps it out. And we evaluate that every single month.
Nice. I love it. So, for yourself, you mentioned about the content that you guys are putting out. I want to talk a little bit about that. Like, where can people find the content? Like, when they're looking, at the content you put out, like, what should they be expecting? What type of stuff are they going to get?
Yeah, so we're super open book. So really, there's nothing out there that we're not afraid to let people know about, whether it's details about the merger, whether it's how to create a forecast, how to do things. The way that I look at things as a thought leader, I look at things that if I can actually explain and tell people and show people how to do something without them ever hiring me, to me, that's a win. That's a huge win. That's more of a compliment really than anything else. And I've had folks do that where I've talked to them and maybe talked to them throughout the years. They've never hired me, and then they come in, and then they take me out for dinner and say, "Yeah, you're the best thing that ever happened. We appreciate it. Thank you very much." To me, I dig that much better than I would, them being a client and telling me that. Although we do have clients telling us that all the time. But with all the content marketing we put out there, it's everything from YouTube videos. We do about 3 different podcasts, each in different areas. And so it's all over YouTube, and you can definitely see all that content out there. We've got all kinds of white pages out there. I've written a couple books about different areas, a lot of little booklets. Like I even wrote a booklet on the merger, and gave it out at the AICPA, the DCPA event last November. And it was really well received. Really detailed 50-page booklet. Here's what happened, and you would never see that with any other accounting firm. They would never even think about doing that. And the nice thing about that is it kind of put the game plan out for anybody else that's even thinking about it. Hey, here's what happened with us. Here's the thoughts that we went, and on both sides, not just my side, but also Anders' side. So they gave a dual perspective, which was pretty cool. And so I think they can find us anywhere. All you have to do is just Google. I mean, it's we'll pop up all over the place. If you Google Summit, Google Virtual CFO, Google really anything Anders, whatever, you're going to find a lot of material out there on YouTube. You'll find a lot of material on the web. You'll find it everywhere.
Awesome. I love it. So can you tell people, for the ones that are listening, I know the ones that are viewing can see the website, but for the people who will listen to this, what's the website that they should be looking for? Yeah,
go to summitcpa.net, SUMMIT CPA.net. I didn't want to pay for the .com, so I went with .net. So we stuck with that one there. And feel free to reach out, with an email if you have any questions. Jody at summitcpa.net. It's JODY at summitcpa.net. I'd be happy to schedule a time just to sit and chat about whatever conversation you want to have, from what works, what didn't work. I'd be happy to do that. I do that all the time. Just look at all the videos. We put a lot of stuff out there, a lot of content out there for you to look at, and hopefully it helps somebody in their journey.
Awesome. Well, before we wrap up, one final question I love to ask, I think, is because you do CFO services, and you guys are actually working with people that are trying to make business decisions and not just doing accounting in the background. So when it comes to that process, are there any, I guess, pieces of advice you would give to business leaders that are trying to hire a CFO, of like, how do they find a good one?
How do they find a good one? That's a great question. They definitely need to vet them out. There's a lot of folks out there that are trying to provide it right now, which is great. But you need to make sure that what you're asking for is what they're doing. What I mean by that is, a lot of folks are, the virtual CFO name, fractional CFO name, all that kind of stuff means different, has different meanings for different people. And so you want to make sure that when you're looking at it, if you're looking at somebody that wants to do the accounting only, they may call themselves a virtual CFO, or they may call themselves a fractional CFO, or there may be another name, outsourced CFO, whatever, but maybe they're just doing the accounting function. Or you may have the folks that they're doing the exact same thing, but maybe they're coming in and coming out. Maybe and what I mean by that is they're solving an issue, and then 6 months later they're gone. As kind of an intermediate type of CFO. So you want to kind of feel the people out, and make sure that they're the right fit for you and what you want them to actually do for you. Do you want them to do forecasting, KPIs, all that kind of good stuff? Have they done that before? Do they have other clients in maybe your industry that's done that before? So there's a lot of different questions to ask, and the web is a great tool for all of that. Just by Googling all the different areas, and you can definitely take a look at and vet those folks out. But the key is knowing exactly what you want going into it, and then making sure that the folks on the other side are doing exactly that.
Awesome. I love it. Well, Jody, thank you for coming on. Thanks for being a great guest. It was a pleasure having you.
Yeah, Terrell, thank you.